Usually, I try to say something clever at the start of these, but I just have to say how great it is seeing Brendan Fraser in a leading role again. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. As part of my coverage of the 2022 Toronto International Film Festival, today I'm going to be talking about A24's 2022 psychological drama, The Whale, which will be released in theaters on December 9th. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. The Whale stars Brendan Fraser, Sadie and Chau, and was directed by Darren Aronofsky. Based on Samuel D. Hunter's 2012 play of the same name, it tells the story of morbidly obese Charlie as he struggles to reconnect with his estranged daughter. I've never been a particularly actor-driven film fan. Genres, stories, general premises, sure. All things that'll get me interested in a movie. But to go just because a certain actor is in the movie? That's never really been my thing. When planning my schedule for TIFF, interesting plots certainly drove the majority of my picks. But as with any festival, there were a handful of films broadly deemed as must-watches that I knew I'd be trying to get into regardless of my own personal interest. Most of these were world premieres, but The Whale, which had premiered at Venice a week earlier, was one of these must-watch movies. The premise sounded like it had some potential, but I'll admit that I've never been much of an Aronofsky fan. Honestly, there hasn't been a movie of his that I would say I ever enjoyed, so I wasn't super excited for The Whale. But I went for one major reason: Brendan Fraser. So let's talk about Brendan Fraser here. He was a seemingly constant fixture in films from my childhood and early teen years, often playing these exceptionally likable comedic action heroes. But then he kind of just disappeared, occasionally playing bit parts in smaller roles, but nothing close to what he had been. Of course, we now all know the tragic and frustrating backstory to that. But here we are with The Whale. After 10 years since his last leading role, Brendan Fraser is starring in a movie again, and I couldn't be happier for him. We should note, though, that being happy and being impressed are not necessarily one and the same. I still could have been happy for his return, but disappointed by his performance here. Thankfully, that's not the case. He is phenomenal here, delivering a performance that's heart-achingly raw and emotional. There's so much empathy. He's got some big moments in this movie. Some impassioned monologues that are bound to be the clip material when his name is inevitably read as one of the Oscar nominees. But even his scenes without any dialogue ooze emotion. It's amazing how much he can do with just his eyes. The Whale is one of those films that transforms over the course of its runtime. Or at least your opinion of it does. It kind of gets off to an iffy start. Obviously, this is a drama about a morbidly obese 600-pound man, so you sort of know what you might be in for, especially in the hands of Aronofsky, but it's still a tough one at first. Much of the initial framing of Charlie, both literal and figurative, feels intentionally shocking. The circumstances of his introduction, the lingering shots of the prosthetic suit, the sweaty messiness of his repeated binge-eating scenes, they all feel like they're designed to repulse. There's this gawking cycle of misery feel to it at first, which is unpleasant. It makes you feel like you're intruding, that you shouldn't be there and shouldn't be seeing these aspects of Charlie's life. But this starts to evolve as the film goes on. We get additional context and pieces of the story. We get to know Charlie, not only just by watching him, but also by seeing his interactions with other characters. His deep, caring, but often humorous relationship with his nurse Liz, his desperate attempts to reconnect with his daughter Ellie, even his interactions with the pizza guy and Thomas the missionary. The things that were initially framed in an awkward, voyeuristic light are suddenly heartbreaking. The Whale is a very contained, almost claustrophobic movie, taking place in the cramped confines of a handful of rooms in Charlie's apartment. That could have been a very overwhelming aspect of this film, and to a certain extent it is, but even though the circumstances of Charlie's life and relationships are inescapable, the depth and diversity of emotions at play prevent the film from ever being unbearable. Despite its transformation, The Whale remains a solidly uncomfortable film from start to finish. Though, to be fair, if you've ever seen any Aronofsky film, you know that comfort just isn't something he does. But as deeply uncomfortable as this movie is, it's just as deeply emotional, touching on grief, the perpetually reinforcing cycle of depression, shame, and guilt, and the impact that we can have on the lives of others. While certainly dipping its fins into manipulative territory at times, often accompanied by its extremely emotionally leading score, The Whale earns most of its tears. And let me tell you, at the press and industry screening at TIFF, there were a lot of tears. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one is definitely Brendan Fraser. After everything he's been through and the long road it's been for him to get back to this point, it's just amazing to see him in a starring role again. All of the performances here were really good, but wow was he great, delivering an emotional, empathetic performance. It was powerful, funny and heartbreaking, physically and emotionally demanding. It was raw, and you can really see that Fraser pours everything he has into it. I can't wait to see him get his first Oscar nomination for this, and possibly his first win. The second pro has got to be the emotion. I know that might sound like a very simple concept, but it's almost overwhelming here. Much of this emotion comes from Brendan Fraser's performance, so you could probably consider this a sub-pro if you really wanted to, but it also comes through in the situations and the various character interactions too. Charlie's backstory, the cycles that have led him to where he is, his self-deprecation, but also the positivity he has towards those he loves, it all hits really hard, building up over time, but ultimately culminating in near guaranteed tears. On the con side, the biggest issue is how manipulative this film can be. Jumping off from the last pro, this movie does come across as emotionally calculating at times. It's easy enough to look past if you're all in on the story or the characters, but no doubt distracting if you're not. The score, the mawkish monologues and attempts at reconnecting with his daughter, even that build-up through the miserable series of events that sets up for the emotional inevitability of the story. It gets the job done, and will definitely trigger the waterworks for most people, but there's definitely some sense of emotional manipulation. Con number two is how intrusive this film feels. Similar to the emotional manipulation of the first con, at times, this movie almost feels exploitative. It's got this weird voyeuristic sideshow gawking shock value to it that threatens to undercut the eventual sentimentality that's reached. Although immersive, the focus on the prosthetic suit and related body horror-esque shots really aren't necessary. They may feed our appetite to see, but they're just unnecessary empty calories for us. This film does eventually shift and transforms how it frames Charlie, but it may be a little too late for some people. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying The Whale or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give The Whale 4 out of 5 paws. This is an extremely uncomfortable but remarkably emotional experience. It borders on manipulative at times, but Brendan Fraser's heartbreaking performance overflows with empathy as the story explores themes of grief, reconnection, acceptance, and self-perpetuating cycles of guilt. I would recommend The Whale to people looking for a heart-wrenching drama. It's not a movie that initially seems like it's one that'll go down that particular path, but the story's pieces really sneak up on you in a sudden emotional confluence. Fans of Aronofsky's typical misery fest approach will have something to latch onto here, but this is a film that's more grounded than most of his other movies, so even this Aronofsky non-fan could like it. And anybody who likes Brendan Fraser, just know that the Renaissance is here, and I think that Oscar just might be his. If you liked The Whale, I would recommend The Wrestler. This is another Aronofsky movie, and perhaps his other most grounded film. Most aspects of the story are quite different, but this movie also features a father trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter. If you're interested in some more Brendan Fraser and somehow haven't already seen it, I've definitely got to recommend The Mummy. He's been in a lot of movies, both comedic and dramatic, but this is probably his most iconic and one of his most enjoyable performances. And if you're interested in another Aronofsky film that delves into religious themes, you might want to check out Mother. This is certainly nowhere near as grounded of a film as The Whale, but its chaotic nature certainly makes it a very uncomfortable watch. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen The Whale? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite Brendan Fraser performance? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies. The way life should be.